What they don't want you to understand is not a secret carved into a vault. It's a gentle, stubborn truth people tend to forget. You are consciousness experiencing itself through form. When that settles in as something lived, not just thought, the shape of your life begins to change, not because some outside force must be convinced, but because the mirror that is your world simply aligns with the state you carry inside. Listen for a moment. This isn't about fancy rituals or wish lists. It's about the quiet architecture beneath wanting, the way internal posture and felt sense bend the field of possibility. Today, I'll walk you through parables, short, safe practices, and a few little shifts you can use immediately. If you keep one line with you, the mirror responds to your state more than it responds to your vocabulary. We'll show you what that looks like and how to feel it. The hidden architecture, Evelyn and the cracked mirror. Evelyn found a mirror at a flea market, framed in brass, pitted with age, a black line like a river running down one corner. She bought it because it felt familiar, like a room she'd once slept in as a child. When she brought it home and hung it in her hallway, she noticed two things right away. On bright mornings, her face looked soft in that mirror. On rushed evenings, it looked harried and small. The mirror did not lie. It reflected what she was offering to it at that moment, her skin and her breath, but also the way she occupied her body and the quiet story behind her eyes. Months later, Evelyn began to test a hypothesis. When she left the house thinking, "I am late again, nothing works," the mirror's return looked thin, as if filtered through fog. When she paused for a breath and leaned into feeling steadier, not denying the chaos, but adding steadiness to it, the reflection looked different, more centered, more assured. The frame did not change, the room did not remodel. Evelyn did. This is the mirror principle at work. Your external life mirrors your dominant inner state, not merely the words you utter. The mirror doesn't judge, it responds. It holds an echo of your posture, your breath, the cadence of your attention. Practice changes the signal you put into that mirror. How that matters. Most teachers and manuals tell you to make your declarations louder, to choose words carefully, to craft intentions like contracts. Language matters, it organizes attention, but it's not the totality of the work. The missing part, the part many overlook, is the body and the felt sense that animates those words. Say, "I am abundant" with clenched jaws and an adrenaline-charged posture, and the mirror will offer a version of abundance tuned to anxiety. Speak the same phrase while your chest is open, your breath slow, and your nervous system relaxed, and the mirror will reflect an abundance that feels breathable. Mirror feel exercise, 60 to 90 seconds. If you have a small mirror, use it. If you don't, imagine your reflection like Evelyn did, vivid enough to feel it. Sit or stand with your feet grounding into the floor. Put one hand over your heart and the other at your belly. Soften your jaw. Take a slow breath in for 4 counts and out for 6 counts, allowing the exhale to lengthen just a little. Look into your own eyes, even if briefly, and say aloud, in a voice that vibrates in your chest, one simple phrase that you can feel. Not a grand claim, but a felt truth. I am steady. Pause. Notice how the muscles around your eyes and throat respond. Breathe again. Whisper it a second time with more feeling, like an offering, not a demand. Rest. This practice is not magic, it is a retuning. It teaches your body the way you want to carry yourself when you step into the noisy human world. Over time, the mirror learns the shape of your steadiness and echoes it back in small ways. A conversation that flows differently, an opportunity that lands without friction, a person mirroring your calm. Be gentle with the process, and remember, these practices complement, they do not replace, professional support for medical, mental health, or legal issues. Frequency and embodiment. Henry, the radio, and the monk. Henry once spent a week living in a monastery to see how his intentions would behave when stripped of noise. He carried with him a small cassette player. He liked the metaphor. And at night he would play a single low note into the dark. That note became a ritual anchor. The monk he conversed with told him something simple. The world answers to vibration, not volume. Speak softly, hold resonance. Henry thought he understood until he tried to manifest a meeting with a publisher. He wrote the letter perfectly. He polished the language until it gleamed. The universe, however, answered in a frequency his body was carrying. Anxiety, impatience, the secret of scarcity ringing under each sentence. His words were excellent. His field was not. Imagine a radio. You can shout at a radio all day. Perfect phrases, precise points. The radio will not change what station it plays unless you tune the dial. Frequency is the dial. Emotional state, nervous system coherence, the quality of your attention, these are the tools that tune you. Words may be the content, but the field, the frequency, is the carrier wave that determines reception. This is why teachers must focus on both, language and embodied state. If you declare your desire and your body is in a panic, you are broadcasting on a frequency that invites tension. If you hold the same desire in a body that feels relaxed and curious, you broadcast on a frequency that invites openness. Neither approach guarantees outcomes. Life is richly complex. But aligning your inner signal with your intention greatly increases the clarity of your request to the field of possibility. Name vibration and breath practice. 60 seconds. Sit comfortably. Place both feet on the ground. Take 2 slow, grounding breaths. Then, say your own name aloud, but allow the sound to sit in your chest. Not loud, simply resonant. If your name is Maya, say, Maya, elongating the vowel on the first syllable, feeling the vibration in the heart and sternum. Repeat 3 times. Between each repetition, inhale gently for 4 counts, letting the sound settle into the body as you exhale. Notice any change in tone, in posture, and how open your chest feels. This small act anchors your identity in sensation rather than in a looping internal script about who you should be. A foundational nervous system regulation microprotocol, 90 seconds. Before we move deeper, let me give you a short regulation practice that I ask you to use as a prerequisite to other embodiment experiments. Think of it as resetting your instrument before you play. Sit with your feet flat and feel the weight through your heels. Place one hand on your lower belly and the other on your heart. Inhale gently for 4 counts, imagining breath moving into your belly, like filling a small pouch. Hold the breath for a count if that feels comfortable. If not, keep moving. Exhale for 6 counts, softening the shoulders as you do. Repeat this cycle 3 times. If 4-4-6 feels awkward, use 3-3-5 or any rhythm that stays within your comfort. Finish by placing attention on the points where your body touches the chair and the ground. Notice the contact, the solidity. Allow a single, slow smile to soften the face if it arises naturally. This is not therapy. It's a stabilizer. Use it before practices that ask for felt imagination or deeper surrender. If you have respiratory issues or a history that advises caution with breath practices, adapt the timing, keep breaths natural, and consult your clinician as needed. These steps are simply a gentle somatic baseline so that when you speak to the mirror or the field, your instrument is not vibrating in panic. The One Principle. Clara, the tea house, and the stones. Clara owned a tiny tea house by a river. People came to her not only for the tea, but for the way she listened, a listening that seemed to make space for things to happen. One morning, a woman named Maya arrived with a question. She wanted to know how to cross the river of her life, a metaphor, in her case, for a career shift and a relationship shift that arrived at once. Clara's answer was not a map, but an exercise. She walked Maya to a line of flat stones leading across the shallows and asked her to notice the stones without stepping yet, to look at how the light hit them, how they fit the water's flow. Awareness is the first step, Clara said. Recognition creates the path. This is the simplest, most radical idea. Awareness is the operative mechanism. Recognition creates experience. When you attend to something, you give it the currency of presence. That currency organizes possibility. We are not claiming that attention alone solves structural problems or external constraints. We are saying that attention is the principal lever you always have with you, the way you recognize the pattern, the part of your story that then entangles with the rest of the world and invites a different response. Think of awareness like a lantern in a dark room. Where you shine the light, you begin to see the furniture, the doorways, the knots in the floor. The same space looks dissimilar depending on the beam. Tools, breath, visualizations, affirmations are important torches. But the one principle is the presence that holds the torch. Shift the holder's steadiness, and the whole landscape rearranges its possibilities. I trust my awareness. Anchor 30 to 60 seconds. Find a quiet seat. Rest your hands on your thighs. Breathe twice through your nose, noticing the inhale and the exhale. Place your right hand over your heart. Speak softly with felt attention. I trust my awareness. Say it 3 times, spacing each phrase with one slow breath. On the second repetition, notice any judgment or doubt that arises and breathe through it without resisting. On the third repetition, allow your attention to rest in the felt sense behind the phrase, the warmth under the hand, the way the chest moves. Let this be an orientation rather than a prove-it-to-you practice. Trust as an experiment. If this lands, this is an appropriate place to pause and do something small in the comments. If you feel called, type the phrase, "I am ready" below. Not because words in a chat have power in and of themselves, but because forming a simple collective signature shifts attention and creates an agreed-upon field. It's optional, and it's a practice in itself, making an external acknowledgement of an internal turning. If you don't type it, simply breathe the phrase inwardly and consider your commitment private. A quick reflection. At this point, how are you feeling in your body? Slight differences matter. You don't have to force yourself into positivity. Notice whether your chest feels open or tight, whether your breath is quick or slow. The mirror will continue to respond to that state. What we are doing here is not asking you to enact relentless performance. We are inviting you to remember a posture that you may have lost, a posture of embodied noticing. Small parable interlude, the radio station that wouldn't tune. A friend told me about a woman who kept changing signals on her small radio because the station she wanted never seemed to come through. She adjusted the antenna, tried different positions, cursed the weather, and even replaced the radio. One night, out of frustration, she placed the radio in a drawer, sat on the floor, and hummed a note into the dark. To her surprise, the radio in the drawer began to pick up the same frequency she was humming. She had not been changing the station, she had been changing herself. This simple story pushes the point. Tuning matters, but tuning begins in you. Words and manifests are content. Frequency is carrier. The heart and the breath are part of that carrier. A safety and compassion note. If you are carrying grief, trauma, financial scarcity, or medical concerns, treat these practices as supportive complements, not cures. They can help regulate the nervous system and sometimes open small channels of possibility, but they do not replace professional guidance. If an exercise brings uncomfortable emotions, slow down, ground yourself with the regulation practice, and seek compassionate professional support when needed. This work asks for tenderness, not pressure. Mini hook, a check-in. Quick check. In one word below, what energy are you choosing right now? If you want, type it. If you prefer silence, simply notice it in your body. Where we are heading and why this matters. So far, you have Evelyn's mirror, Henry's radio, and Clara's lantern, each a parable that points back to the same thesis. The field responds to felt states more than to perfectly crafted phrases. But what changes when you take this as a lived orientation? Two things. You get to approach desire with humility rather than hunger, and you develop a practical muscle to regulate your internal climate before you broadcast into the field. That muscle is nervous system regulation. People often treat regulation like optional polish. It's actually the foundation. If your baseline is fight or flight, no amount of clever visualization will land softly enough to invite the flow you want. Regulation is not a performance. It's an announcement. I am ready to receive differently. A short story to illustrate. Maya and the stones again. When Maya returned to the river after weeks of practice, breath, naming, noticing, the stones that had previously felt unstable now sat steady under her feet. Not because the stones changed, but because her step changed. That is the invitation here. Practical, not mystical. Tender, not punitive. What's next? An invitation. Soon we'll move into a suite of core tools. The emotional compass, desire held as conversation, surrender as alignment rather than resignation, imagination practiced as felt sensation, authentic gratitude, and simple protocols for money and relationships as resonant energy. Each tool will come with a short embodiment practice you can do seated, designed to be safe and accessible. We'll also explore contracts and renegotiation, the way recurring patterns can be released by conscious intention, and the stillness that births new possibility, the spacious witness. For now, rest in what you've practiced. If you felt anything shift, even curiosity, you are exactly where you need to be. If nothing felt different, that is fine too. Remember, remembrance unfolds in small increments. A gentle pause here is useful. Take a slow breath now. Place your hand on your heart. If you haven't yet and you feel moved, type "I am ready" below as a quiet public commitment, or whisper it inwardly. Either way, this is the one engagement I invite at this point. It's an energetic signature, optional and simple. We will continue by exploring the core tools of mastery, the emotional compass that tells you whether you're moving toward or away from alignment, desire reframed as a conversation rather than a transaction, creative allowance that leans into timing rather than forcing, and embodiment techniques that make imagination a felt architecture. Before we do that, one more short preparatory practice. A body scan that anchors you into the felt present so the next exercises land with clarity. Preparatory body scan, 45 to 60 seconds. Sit comfortably. Close or soften your eyes. Starting at your feet, notice the sensations. Tingling, heaviness, warmth, cold, whatever is there. Move your attention slowly up the legs, through the pelvis, into the belly, chest, shoulders, throat, and face. On arrival at the heart, rest your hand there for one breath. If a strong emotion arises, treat it like weather. Name it silently: sadness, fear, curiosity, and return to the scan. This practice is not about fixing. It's about noticing, which is the first practical step towards skillful action. Pause. Breathe. When you feel steadier, you are ready to step into the next block with a cleaner baseline. Tools for living, the emotional compass, desire as dialogue, surrender, and imagination practiced as felt sense. Those are the practical acts of remembering who you are, not merely a thinker making requests, but a living awareness that tunes and is tuned. And so we continue. Tools for mastery, the emotional compass. Vera had learned to navigate storms by watching a small whiteboard she kept by her kitchen door. On the left, she wrote "closed," and on the right, she wrote "open." Each morning, she would scratch a single word, the feeling that showed up first when she woke. Some days the word was tight, some days curious, sometimes exhausted. The entry didn't judge her life,
it simply calibrated it. Over months, she discovered that a few honest words each morning helped her make different choices. Not dramatic ones, but incremental. A call accepted that she would have otherwise declined. A pause before answering a partner. A softer tone when replying to an email. Her internal compass didn't magically erase problems, but it did guide her away from reactive decisions. The emotional compass is a practical tool. Feelings are not obstacles to destiny, they are data. They tell you whether the inner environment you're offering to the mirror is open or closed, dense or fluid. Notice this carefully. Acknowledging a feeling does not mean you are stuck in it. It means you are reading the room of your inner climate with a neutral curiosity. When you name tight, you can choose a small, skillful next step to unwind tension.
When you notice curiosity, you can choose to follow it. Emotional compass practice. Morning hand on heart scan, 60-90 seconds. Sit at the edge of the bed or in a chair with your feet on the floor. Place your right hand gently over your heart and your left hand on your lower belly. Breathe naturally for a moment. Then take 3 slow breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, letting the shoulders soften on each exhale. On the next inhale, name one word that describes the dominant feeling in your chest. Open, tight, sad, quiet, curious. Say it quietly to yourself, not as a verdict but as a note. Breathe. Ask, if I were to move toward more ease today, what small thing could I do? Notice the first tiny impulse, perhaps standing for an extra minute, choosing a warm drink, sending one honest message. Keep the action small. Carry the note with you as a compass, not a command. Desire as divine conversation. Ruthie had been taught to treat desire like a shopping list. Itemize, demand, tick off. That method worked for a while, but the results were often hollow and hurried. Then a friend suggested a different relationship with wanting. Imagine desire as a letter sent to a beloved, not to an enemy. When Ruthie reframed her wanting as conversation rather than conquest, she softened. Desire lost the sting of scarcity and became an invitation to dialogue. She learned to listen to the echoes of the desire, murmurs of fear, little lights of possibility, and to answer gently. When we treat desire as conversation, we honor its origin as an expression of life within us. Desire becomes a teacher, revealing what matters, where love wants to expand, where curiosity is pulling you. The careful shift is to hold desire lightly and respond with tenderness, not to push at the first resistance, but to cultivate interest and stewardship. Desire practice, the 3-seed night naming, 90 seconds. Before sleep, sit or lie down comfortably. Breathe slowly 3 times to settle. Name aloud or silently 3 small desires, not grand outcomes, but seed forms. I desire a steady project. I desire a kinder tone in my meetings. I desire a new friendship. After each naming, place your hand on your heart and breathe for 4 counts, imagining the desire as a seed warming in darkness. Say to yourself, I hear you. If resistance arises, name it, fear, not enough, and breathe into it without pushing. Let the practice be an act of recognizing rather than demanding. Over time, this care changes the way desire is carried into the field. Less forceful, more inviting. Surrender and allowance. Louisa and the unfolding map. Louisa loved lists and timelines. She crafted itineraries for spiritual growth as if the soul were a project to be managed. Then life offered a detour, a sudden health scare for a friend, shifting family responsibilities, and her maps unraveled. At first, she felt cheated. Later, she noticed that surrender was not resignation. It was the capacity to allow another intelligence to rearrange the path without losing her center. Surrender, practiced well, is an intelligent yielding. It releases the how and cultivates trust in the when. Allowance is not passivity. It is a posture that pairs clear intention with flexibility in form. You continue to act,
to make wise choices, to follow impulses, while letting go of rigid scripts for how and when outcomes must occur. Imagine dancing with life rather than dragging it across a finish line. Surrender practice, whispering release, 45 to 60 seconds. Sit with your hand on your belly. Breathe in for 4 counts, out for 6. On each exhale, whisper softly to yourself, I release the how. I welcome the unfolding. Repeat 3 times. As you whisper, imagine your hands softening, the jaw unclenching, and space opening in your chest like a door easing on its hinges. Notice the sensation of offering rather than demanding. If worry creeps back, return to the breath. If strong resistance arises, use the foundational regulation breath first and then try again. Imagination as felt architecture. Nora, Hassan, and the Room of Light. Nora kept a small cupboard of memories, a stone from a seaside trip, a ribbon from a childhood recital, a postcard with a sunset. She was practical and skeptical about visualization until she tried inhabiting the feeling that belonged to a future favorably arranged life, rather than merely picturing objects. Hassan, a carpenter, taught her a metaphor. Don't just draw the house you want to live in, learn to feel how it is to wake up there. The weight of the sheets, the warmth of sunlight on the forearm, the smell of coffee. This subtle shift, from object to sensation, made her visual practice richer and less fanciful. When you use imagination as felt architecture, you build the interior climate that the mirror responds to. You are not asking for a fantasy, you are cultivating a neuromapped state. Breathing patterns, posture, facial expression, the inner tone. The field listens to that tone. Felt visualization practice, embodied 5-minute scene, 3 to 5 minutes. Find a comfortable seated place. Use the regulation breath once to settle. Close your eyes gently. Imagine one small scene that would feel true if things were moving towards your desire. Not a blockbuster montage, but a single moment. For example, sitting at a table with someone offering congratulations, or opening a letter that reads, "We'd love to work with you," or receiving a friendly check-in text. Sense the scene through the body. What is the quality of your breath? Is your chest open? Do your shoulders rest? Where is the warmth? Allow sound, texture, and smell to appear if they come. Hold the scene for a few breaths, then bring the feeling into your belly and heart. Anchor the scene by softly exhaling and whispering, "This is possible."
When you open your eyes, let the feeling linger for a moment. If strong emotions come up, the regulation breath is your first aid. Authentic gratitude. Enough, not exhaustion. Gratitude has been turned into a spiral of performative lists. 10 things before breakfast, gratitude journals checked as chores. That outward exercise can be useful, but the heart of genuine gratitude is a felt recognition of sufficiency in small things. Marjorie discovered this when she stopped aiming for grand thank you lists and instead focused on a single, tiny pleasure each evening. The shape of steam from her tea, the way a neighbor smiled, the frictionless sound of pages turning in a book. These small recognitions changed the tone of her nervous system from scarcity to sufficiency. Authentic gratitude is not about denying lack. It's about acknowledging what is already present so your signal into the field carries steadiness rather than grasping. Gratitude practice, the small pleasure whisper, 45 to 60 seconds. Sit quietly, close your eyes. Bring to mind one small, simple pleasure from today. The exact curve of steam, a warm window, a particular laugh. Feel the sensation in your chest. Whisper the word enough 3 times, spacing each whisper with a slow inhale. Let the word feel like an exhalation that can rest in the chest, not a performance. If the word triggers resistance, name the resistance and soften into it. Over time, this practice trains the system to receive rather than always chase. Sleep and the subconscious, alchemy, setting a gentle intention. Our nights are laboratories of change.
The last thought before sleep is a seed planted in the subconscious garden. Small intentional endings can influence how the mind sifts experiences during rest. This isn't a guarantee of transformation, but it is a reliable way to tip the scale toward integration. Sleep practice, the last thought seed, 30 to 60 seconds. As you lie down, choose a short phrase you feel comfortable with. As I rest, my world rearranges with care. Or, simply, as I sleep, I allow right unfolding. Repeat the phrase 3 times with natural breath. Let the last repetition be soft, like a lullaby. If the mind wanders, return gently without judgment. This is a tender instruction, not a promise written in stone. Contracts and renegotiation, the unseen threads. Silas used to wake to the same old disappointment. Opportunities that fizzled, relationships that repeated the same bruises. He began to notice patterns, not as blame, but as agreements that had been made long ago, often unconsciously, with the world. Maybe a childhood vow to be useful tightened him into self-erasing behaviors. Perhaps a family story had written scarcity into his expectations. The practice of renegotiation is naming those unseen threads and offering them different terms. This can be symbolic and profound. Renegotiation practice, conscious release, 60 to 90 seconds. Sit with a candle or a still point in the room.
Place your hand on your sternum. Name one recurring pattern that no longer serves you in a short phrase. I release the agreement to shrink. Say, I release the agreement that no longer teaches with love. Exhale loudly or sigh, imagining that statement moving out of the body. If sitting with feelings is intense, return to the regulation breath and ground with the sensation of feet on the floor. The practice is symbolic. It helps reallocate attention and intention toward new forms. Money and relationships as resonance, circulation and mirror. Caleb had a hard edge around money. For years, he treated it like a fortress. Protect, hoard, avoid. That posture shaped his transactions into defensive rituals. A friend suggested a small experiment. Before paying a bill or transferring money, place a hand over the heart for a moment and offer a soft phrase. May this move in circulation for good. The ritual didn't change the numbers overnight, but it shifted his internal tone. Money became movement rather than scarcity. Relationships became mirrors, not battlegrounds. Money is energy in use. Relationships are living mirrors. Both respond to the frequency you bring. Trust, fear, generosity, scarcity all register in the field. The ethical thread here is to steward resources with integrity and to recognize structural factors that shape outcomes. We practice inner shifts as complements to wise external choices. Money relationship practice. Transaction hand on heart, 30 to 45 seconds. Before you make a payment, hand a small gesture of recognition. Pause, place one hand over your heart, and whisper, circulation equals trust. Breathe once. Notice any tightness or constriction in the chest. If present, breathe through it without forcing. This is a micro-practice to reframe the internal tone around exchange. It's not a magic key. It's a way to train your body to handle financial movement with less contraction. Timelines and trust. Dorothy and the ripening orchard. Dorothy planted a tree that would fruit in years she would not live to see. At first, watching the slow trunk, she wrestled with impatience. Over seasons, she noticed how patience is not passive waiting, but active tending, pruning, watering, protecting from pests. She came to respect timing as an ally. Trusting the ripening process does not mean stagnation. It means you take the grounded actions that honor long arcs and release the obsession with immediate gratification. Timing is a living intelligence. Things unfold in nested timing. Your body, culture, and the field all have rhythms. Trusting timing is to practice the difference between urgency and presence. Timing practice, breath anchor for trust, 45 to 60 seconds. Place fingertips lightly on your throat and chest. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 2, exhale for 6.
On the exhale, imagine sending a soft permission into the field. Right timing is evidence of right unfolding. Say it once.
Let the body notice the change between hurry and restful pace. Repeat as needed. The observer and the spacious now, the still point. Edna learned to sit in small pockets of silence in her day. Minutes between meetings, the pause before a meal, the breath after a text. In those still points, she noticed something consistent, a quality of presence that allowed thoughts to move without tugging her into story. The stillness was not a void. It was a clear pool that reflected without ripples. That reflective space is the birthplace of new preference and the laboratory where felt sense becomes art. Cultivating the witness is not dissociation. Rather, it is learning to see your thoughts and feelings as weather in a sky that is large enough to hold them. The space between stimulus and reaction is where choice emerges. Witnessing practice, the 60-second thought watcher, 60 seconds. Sit comfortably. Bring attention to the breath for 3 cycles. Imagine that thoughts are leaves floating down a stream. Rather than stepping into the stream to chase a leaf, watch them pass. If a thought arises, planning, worrying, reminiscing, label it gently, planning, worry, memory, then return to the breath. Do not judge the presence of thoughts. Notice them as participants and allow the open space to outsize them. This is a practice of orientation. The more you inhabit the witness, the more you can choose your response. Advanced frames, contracts, circulation, and ethical grounding. Here's an important ethical anchor. As you practice these tools, remember that inner work is never a simplistic explanation for structural inequality, chronic illness, or systemic injustice. The practices we share are aimed at personal regulation, clarity, and alignment, tools that increase the capacity to respond skillfully in complex environments. They are not solutions to issues that require legal, medical, or political attention. If you are dealing with significant hardship, use these practices as gentle supports and engage relevant professionals for concrete, external help. Optional deeper map, if you are called. If you feel called to go deeper, there is a more extended curriculum available in the pinned comment Beyond the Frequencies. It is purely optional, designed as a map for those who want guided sequences and longer embodiment sessions. Nothing in your unfolding depends on it. It's offered as a companion for those who wish to go further with structure and community. Mini ganchos and short pauses. Quick check. If anything here landed, notice the small shift in your posture right now. Tiny changes compound. Pause for one breath. If you're following along, see if you can carry one feeling from this video into the next hour. A soft curiosity, a quiet trust, or a steadying openness. The forbidden light, the climax of remembering. Now comes the passage where the separate points join into a living view.
This is the forbidden light, not because someone keeps it hidden, but because it tends to be passed over in favor of techniques and tips. The realization that consciousness is not merely something you possess and deploy. It is the very fabric through which experience takes form. You are not a passerby using a tool called consciousness. You are consciousness temporarily wearing the form of you. Say that slowly to yourself. You are consciousness experiencing itself. This is less a metaphysical claim hammered like doctrine and more an invitation to remember. When you entertain this frame, everything shifts in orientation. The mirror principle, frequency, the witness, imagination, surrender, they are not disconnected tricks. They are modalities of remembering how to hold presence so that what is born in your field is coherent with the state of the knower. There is a tenderness here. To say you are consciousness is to say you are both the river and the banks, the song and the ear, the sculptor and the clay. It reframes agency away from forcing outcomes and toward an intimate collaboration with life's intelligence. The work becomes less about making the universe obey a list and more about aligning the instrument that participates in the symphony. Nervous system baseline reset. The practical missing link. If the forbidden light is the conceptual turning, then the practical missing link is the baseline vibration of your nervous system. You can have aspiration and vivid imagination, but if the body defaults to alarm, the field will receive an anxious tune. Here is a micro-protocol, safe, seated, or supported, to reset the baseline and make the practices above land with more integrity. This is longer than the earlier regulation drill and is meant as an anchor when the mirror feels stubborn. Baseline reset micro-protocol, 4 to 6 minutes. Find a stable seat. Feet flat, hands resting on thighs. If lying down feels safer, lie down. Begin with 3 natural breaths. Then, 1. Grounding contact. 30 seconds. Feel the points where your body contacts the ground or chair. Name silently. Feet, seat, support. Let gravity become an ally. Feel it carry you. 2. Vagal soothing breath. 90 seconds. Inhale softly for 4 counts through the nose, feeling the breath move into the belly. Pause for 1 count if comfortable. Exhale through the mouth for 6 counts, allowing the exhale to be longer. As you exhale, imagine releasing tension from the face, the neck, the shoulders. Repeat this cycle for about 1.5 minutes. If breath holding is uncomfortable, shorten the hold or skip it. 3. Titrated sensation scan. 60 seconds. With the hand on the heart and one on the belly, shift attention through 3 touch points: heart, belly, sternum. On each point, breathe for 1 slow cycle and notice temperature, pressure, subtle movement. The aim is to register internal safety signals. 4.
Low-tone hum, 45 to 60 seconds. Take a comfortable breath in and create a soft hum on the exhale. Feeling vibration in the chest. Repeat 3 times. This hum is not loud. It's a resonant anchor that soothes the vagus nerve. 5. Orientation statement, 30 to 45 seconds. After the hum, place attention on the eyes and face. Whisper to yourself, "I am available to receive in a calmer way," or choose a simple phrase that lands in your body. Breathe and notice any subtle shift in tone. If any step causes distress, return to normal pacing, rest, or stop. If you have serious respiratory, cardiovascular, or trauma-related conditions, adapt timing and consult a professional if needed. This protocol is practical and immediate. It doesn't promise outcomes, it simply changes the sender. When you send from a calmer instrument, the mirror is more likely to reflect back options you can actually step into. Integration, weaving the threads into daily practice. Integration is less about adding more items to your to-do list and more about selecting a few simple habits that resonate with your rhythm. Consider choosing 1 morning habit, 1 midday anchor, and 1 evening closing practice from the ones we've explored. For example, the emotional compass hand on heart in the morning, the transaction hand on heart, or the 60-second witness during a midday pause, and the 3-seed night naming before sleep. These triads are practical because they anchor key transitions in the day: start, middle, and end. Remember the repeating phrases as anchor points. I trust my awareness. I am steady. As I rest, my universe aligns. These are not spells. They are orientation phrases that bring the body into the same tone as the field you'd like to inhabit. Stories of small remembrances. I'll offer a few brief vignettes of ordinary people who practice these tools without promises, only remembrance. Hazel, who had lived decades with the belief she was not enough at work, began one ritualistic practice. Before each meeting, a soft inhale and the whisper, "I am enough to be here." The words didn't change her job overnight, they changed the way she listened. Over time, she noticed fewer reactive emails and a steadier clarity. Floyd kept a complex relationship with money, oscillating between shame and avoidance. He started the transaction hand on heart practice. The ritual didn't produce a sudden windfall. What it did do was change his tone with vendors and partners. He negotiated with less reactivity and more honesty.
Nora, the one who learned to feel the house rather than picture it, used the felt visualization consistently for 6 weeks. She did not manifest a mansion, but she found herself making choices that were more aligned with the life she wanted to feel. A different job schedule, a neighborly invitation that led to new collaborations. Each of these examples is a reminder that the work is slow and kind. Small shifts compound.
The mirror does not always deliver in the ways you imagine, but it often begins to mirror a different instrument. A short pause. Take a breath. Pause now. Place your hand on your heart. Breathe in for 4 counts, out for 6. Notice if the body has shifted. If so, honor that as evidence of practice, not proof. Final practice before the close, a dawn-dusk whisper. This is a short, ritualizable practice you can carry at dawn or dusk, a hinge moment. It's a reminder and a recommitment. Dawn-dusk whisper, 30-45 seconds. At the edge of sleep or at the start of your day, place your hand over your heart. Breathe into the belly. Softly whisper, I am awareness, aware of itself. Repeat this phrase 3 times, not as a demand, but as a calibration. Feel the words sit in your chest. Let them be a small anchor for actions that day, or a tender benediction for the night. Compassionate reminder. If this work touches ancient wounds, approach it with care. Practices are supportive tools. They are not replacements for therapy, medical care, or legal counsel where needed. Use them as part of a compassionate regimen that includes appropriate professional support. Closing synthesis. What has been overlooked? We began with a title that sounded conspiratorial, what they don't want you to understand. Now that we've traveled together, we reframe that phrase. Not as an accusation against people or institutions, but as a nudge toward what is often overlooked, the interior architecture of how you send your signal into the field. The overlooked thing is not a forbidden ritual. It is a gentle truth. You are consciousness experiencing itself. Your felt state is the instrument through which experience arises. And nervous system coherence is the bridge between intention and lived reception. This knowledge is not a trick to make life conform to a script. It is an invitation to remember the quality of attention you bring to the world. It asks for tenderness, practice, and patience. And it gives back the ability to participate more skillfully in the unfolding you are part of. A final micro reset. 60 to 90 seconds. Before we close, let us do one final simple recalibration. Sit easily. Place feet on the floor. Place one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Breathe in for 3 counts, hold briefly, and exhale for 5 counts. Hum softly once on the exhale. Feel the contact points, the solidity. Whisper to yourself, I am available. Allow a small smile. Rest for 1 breath. This is a compact version of the reset you can carry anywhere. Optional next step. If you want a more extended practice set and guided meditations that follow these sequences step by step, you can explore the resource linked in the pinned comment, Beyond the Frequencies. It is an optional companion, no pressure, designed to support a longer integration for those who feel called. Parting words. You are not required to become an expert quickly. Begin with curiosity. Begin with 1 practice. The mirror will respond to the steadiness you carry, not to the volume of your declarations. If you are kind to yourself while you practice, you will cultivate a field that invites possibility in ways that are aligned with growth and ethical care. Final invitation and call to action. If this material resonated, consider subscribing and sharing this with someone who might appreciate a gentle reminder about how they send themselves into the world. If you feel moved, choose 1 practice from today, the morning hand on heart,
the 3-seed night naming, or the dawn/dusk whisper, and do it for 7 days. Notice the small differences. Remember, the point is remembrance, not mastery. You are consciousness experiencing itself, learning to recognize the tone it carries. Carry that tone with curiosity and compassion. Thank you for allowing this time. Be gentle with yourself. Breathe. Whisper your truth at dawn or dusk. Walk as both the river and the bank.